Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I am the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. Ocean energy is one of the technologies that has been long underway, and is still underway. The sector has traditionally been quite research-heavy, but over the last years a certain level of private industry involvement has occurred. The area is facing the big paradox that energy from the different ocean energy technologies could provide substantial and sustainable energy to the continent, but the research, development and innovation costs are very high to get there because of a harsh environment. I have myself supported the Danish ocean energy sector over a period of 4 years back in the beginning of the 2010s. It was my job to facilitate EU funding for them and lobby towards the EU Commission on the work programs. That work put me in close contact with Ocean Europe, which is the European umbrella organization for the whole sector, both within R&D and industry. They have taken a big journey from being a 1.5-person secretariat and very few perspectives for support from EU to an 8-person organization with their own strategic research agenda and strong ties and commitment from the Commission. I invited my good old contact CEO Rémi Gruet into the virtual podcast studio for a talk about the ocean energy sector, how Ocean Europe has moved to be a strong professional lobby and support organization, and how they work for their members. This is very interesting. This episode gives insights into how to work as a stakeholder organization in Brussels, how to get most out of your influencing resources, and slowly growing your organization. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today, I have a very old contact in the virtual podcast studio, and I've been actually looking forward to inviting someone from this sector in that we're going to talk about today. And before, I'm just keeping the cliffhanger here, the suspense about what we're going to talk about. But first of all, Rémi, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, rather.
Very, very nice. Very nice to see you. Rémi, before I say anything else about what we're going to talk about today, can you shortly present yourself and where you're from?
Sure. So I'm Rémi Gruet. I'm a French national living in Belgium, but mostly I'm the CEO of Ocean Energy Europe, which might already reveal the cliffhanger, I'm afraid. So I've been doing this for the last 10 years. Before that, I was in wind energy, and I've been active in the energy field for the last 20 years. But the last 10 years have been spent in ocean energy, dealing with these new renewable energy technologies.
You have. And it's so this is what we're going to talk about today, and it's the reason why I have been looking forward to this is because it's a sector that I spent quite some years of my career to push for, and it's a sector that I have a big heart for.
Me too.
It's an absolute wonderful sector that we're going to unfold for you all today, and so we will get back to that to kind of give you the bouquet of why both me and Rémi we have a heart for this. It's ocean energy, it's tidal energy, it's everything you put in the water to generate energy to the shore, so to say. This is what we're going to talk about today. Rémi. Maybe, so the disclaimer here is that we've been knowing each other for a long time. It's been a while since we had anything to do with each other because I, in my profession, stepped a little bit away from this. But for 4 or 5 years, from 2010 to 2015, it was part of my portfolio to support and help the Danish ocean energy sector.
Correct.
Approaching funding from the European Commission, and to help the sector have an influence on the wording and text in the work programs, the energy. Now, a lot of water have run under the bridge since then. You came into ocean energy when 2013.
Yeah, 13, correct.
12 or something. Yeah. And I have been working together with a couple of your predecessors, but you came in as a consultant or something like this, right? Working under the...
No, I was hired as policy director first.
Yeah, policy director. Yeah. But you were hired up by the organization.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and the idea was that I would take over after a short bit of time once things were more set up than they were when I arrived.
Yeah. Maybe we, because today part of it is going to be about ocean energy. That's the main topic. So let's just let the suspense out. We're going to talk about ocean energy and EU funding, and a big part of that is talking about how you, as an organization, Ocean Energy Europe, works. But so maybe we will talk a lot about Ocean Energy Europe the next hour and a half. But maybe you just give a short introduction to the organization.
Sure. Well, it's very simple. There are a number of organizations like ours that represent the interest of one particular industrial sector. In our case, it's ocean energy. So we understand under that all the sectors dealing with tidal, wave, salinity gradient, and OTEC, which is short for Ocean Thermal Energy Exchange, which is essentially a heat exchanger technology with water. And recently also more dealing with SWAC, which is seawater air conditioning, which is similar than to OTEC, except you don't transform the heat into electricity. You just keep it as heating or cooling. So these 5 technologies are the ones we represent. Our remit, our job is to represent the industry towards European institutions mostly. Sometimes we go to national level when it's justified, necessary. We do that in partnership with national association, but we are foremost a non-for-profit organization whose objective it is to help develop the sector, to push for the sector, because we believe that this sector has a space in the EU electricity landscape, even more so now in the last few years. But already back 10, 15 years ago, when it was clear that climate change would need a full decarbonization of the system, it was clear that this was one of the solutions to it. So yeah, that's a bit the organization in a nutshell. Our members are spanning the entire supply chain, from universities working on high-end research projects to project developers working on actual kit in the water, utilities, large, the ones you know, machine device manufacturers, and even regions that have identified the potential for economic development that the sector represents for them, specifically the regions with a great resource or the regions with a great industrial base in offshore or in materials, etc. have been very interested in the sector. So we try to represent all of these people. They bring different informations and values and needs, and we try to carry those needs towards the European institutions. So it's the Parliament, the Commission, the Council, which again leads us to go and visit member states from time to time. Well, I think in a nutshell, that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, and as such, you're a classical sort of industrial or sector organization, right? You represent the sector both from a research point of view and from a private point of view. Sometimes in Brussels, you have a division, you have industry organizations,
yes,
and research and so on. But here you have, also because the sector is small, right? So you kind of you're an umbrella for everybody.
Yeah, that's
which makes perfect sense, because this is also, so we're slowly moving into the fly-in to the sector, right? Because characterizing this sector, because we might have listeners out there thinking, but you have an industrial, or you have a sector organization of something I never heard about.
Correct.
Now,
Many people haven't.
which you will have very, very dedicated people within this sector that can talk for hours about how important this sector is, and this is one of the reasons why it's such a beautiful sector. But let us just shortly try to make a characterization of the sector itself, because it is a research heavy sector. It is a sector that is having they have the square root problem that to commercialize, you need to test and do a lot of testing of things.
Correct.
But the tests are very expensive because it's an extremely harsh environment. And you don't get money if you cannot show that your technology, like, it's difficult to get finance from investors if it's difficult for you to show that it's going to be financially viable. But so it's the bad circle, right? This is a sector that is struggling with that.
You need money to deploy, and you need to deploy to have data, and you need data to get money.
Yeah. So characterizing the sector would be, so you have research organizations, especially in Northwestern Europe and in the Iberian, so Spanish, Basque Country. You have some French, English, like UK, and then you have Scandinavia a little bit, but it's quite. This is sort of the area, geographical area. Companies, they rise and fall a lot in this sector. This is what I've seen, right? They struggle a lot exactly because of this. So you have a lot of companies that try, but they live out of funding.
Well, that last part is true, but I have to say there has been some change since you left the sector, and the sector is no longer research led. It is very much industrial players led today. We've had around the time where you left, we had the first wave of pilot farms for tidal that went into the water. You've probably still heard of Maygen, of Nova Innovations project in the Shetlands. These companies have put the first tidal machines in the water in 2015 and 16. And today in 2023, we're putting a second wave of tidal farms in the water. Some of the industrial players who were there have indeed disappeared. It's normal. Some of them have been bought up. It's a factor of consolidation in an early industrial sector.
Yeah.
And now we have, I would say, I don't know, up to 10 maybe very serious players in tidal that are beyond prototype stage, so they're ready to work on these pilot farms. We have a bit more in wave. The wave sector is still trying to put prototypes, full-scale prototypes. It's a bit, the development came a bit later than the tidal development, and it's also a bit more complex, quite frankly, to extract wave energy than to extract tidal energy. But today we have the big utilities, EDF, ENGIE, Enel, ENEI, who are back in the sector. They're partnering in projects, they're looking at what can they finance, where are the markets, how do you reach financial close, all of these questions. And they do that with a very professional project developer approach, using project finance. And yes, subsidies are a big part of all of these projects at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I guess some of that we'll get to today.
Yeah. Now, what was always what they were talking about all the time in the 5 years I was working with this was if they could just get something connected to the grid.
Yeah.
To show grid connection, to show how much energy comes, because wave, tidal energy, the extracting energy from the ocean, it is the holy grail when it comes to. There is an element of it, because if you can manage that somehow, if man can tame the sea with this, then we have endless clean energy to the day the Earth is extinct, right? Because there's so much energy in the wave. So if we can manage that, it's an endless source.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say endless, but because it's actually fixed and limited, but it is a very large resource. That's correct. For Europe, with current technologies, we estimate that we could cover 10% of total European consumption. Also very significant. So, and across the world, there is about 350 gigawatts of identified potential at the moment. Yeah, so it's very, very significant, and it spans a lot of countries because most countries have some form of ocean connection. It's probably feasible for most to extract some form of ocean energy. Obviously, there are still a few landlocked countries, whether in Central Europe or Africa or Central Asia, but beyond that, a lot of easy access to the resource for everybody.
Now we're slowly, because this podcast is about EU funding, so that's slowly where we're going to move in, and how you have played a role in this. But just the general lack of financing, that was that was what everybody. It was an issue. It was a back curtain of everything. How on earth do we finance these things? Right? Has that become easier?
It's become to a certain extent easier, because the answer to how we finance it has always been the same. When we launched wind energy onshore, when we launched solar, when we launched offshore wind, all of these industries have been financed with public money, with grant funding at the very beginning in the earlier stage of technological development, and then with feed-in tariffs, renewable certificates, tenders, CFDs, you name it, but any form of revenue support. The minute you hit project finance, you need to be able to repay your investors, you need to be able to pay the banks, the equity providers, and for that you need revenue support. So the answer to your question is known. What we've been missing is the political will to put money into renewables again after the financial crisis. It's hit governments very hard, it's hit utilities as well, and some form of inflation. And in your country, in Denmark, you certainly know about that. Inflation in the cost of some subsidies to wind to a certain extent, probably mostly to solar, has had a negative effect on the willingness of governments to continue funding without any form of security about the outcome.
Yeah, because here it was very back in the first half of the 10s. You had Denmark. There was a government that channeled a little bit of money into specifically wave energy, but then it stopped, and then they had to apply for funding from the energy agency, the general development scheme that they have national funding for. And then, so that was that. Then you had Scotland. They were going forward with the torch, right? So they were channeling a lot of public funding towards the sector, which helped a lot. You know, Pelamus, some of these first companies that really tried to put big stuff in the water.
Yes.
They have as far as I remember, they were quite consistent with backing the sector. And then that was pretty much it. There was a little bit in France, the UK, England, you know, like the rest of the UK, it was a little bit, you know, like stepping on the brake. So it was not. But how is the landscape now?
So the landscape's much better. In the last 2 years, the landscape has greatly improved. First, throughout that period between 2015, when a lot of the money dried up at national level, and now the European Commission has consistently put grants on the table for companies to put projects at different levels of development, technological development. So put projects in the water, and they've probably single-handedly helped the sector to survive throughout those years. But 2 years ago, the UK put a feed-in tariff on the table. Canada was the only country at the time to have a feed-in tariff on the table, and a number of companies, with European companies, went to Canada to try and develop projects. Some difficulties over there, but anyway.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember.
And China then put a feed-in tariff on the table. So the UK repeated that. So AR4, which is the funding round, the tendering round for offshore energies. So it's offshore wind mostly, but it's also tidal. Put a ring fence program of 20 million for tidal, which financed 40 megawatts worth of tidal plants. And the AR5 has another 10 million for this year. So it was the first, and nowadays France has just announced as well that they would finance a 17 megawatt pilot farm in France by with a company called HydroQuest, a French player. So the landscape at national level on revenue support is much better. The landscape at European level on grant funding via either Horizon Europe or the Innovation Fund is also much better. So it's looking much better than just 2 years ago even.
So this is where I want to go, because the European Commission was the only real serious backer.
Yeah, correct. For
consistently for many over many years, even after years when they saw projects crash.
Yeah, correct.
Project after project, they consistently backed the sector. We'll get back to that, because now we are bridging very wonderfully into having a short introduction to Ocean Energy Europe. So I would like you to share a little bit about, and maybe I can give the listeners a sort of paint the picture of when I met Rémi, when he started in the organization. At that time, Ocean Energy Europe, what was the name of the organization back then?
European Ocean Energy Association.
Yeah, something like that. And there had been there was one director when I started, and then she was exchanged. Another one came in. The organization was very small.
Yeah, correct.
Also, the level of the budget, the level of members that they could get to pay. So it was literally a small office with the director, and I think there was that share something like this, a part-time student or student. It was very small very small organization that you have tons of in Brussels. And it was organization mirroring the sector where it was at the time, because nobody had the money to pay large member fees or something like this. But everybody in the sector, they knew that the European Union was the only place they should rely on getting some funding.
Yeah, correct.
So it was the only hook that was in the direct connection to the Commission. So what happened was that Jean-Georges, she sort of professionalized the connection to the Commission, as far as I remember. There was and she built up a strong sort of link to the right people, Matthias Söder, some from these departments, that believed it was important to continue the support for the organization. So when you came in, it was sort of coming up slowly, having some bigger wheels under the organization, and the Commission had just around that time confirmed that they would continue making calls related to Ocean Energy, because that was in doubt. I remember clearly when I started in 10-11 and started to dig out the sector, that there had been a handful of projects that crashed, and everybody in the sector was holding their breath if the Commission was going to continue supporting the sector, what was going to happen. But they continued, and they haven't stopped ever since. So that's the picture when you came, sort of.
Almost correct. So I mean,
correct me where I was wrong.
Okay, just so essentially, when I came in, the board of directors, who at the time had large companies like Alstom, EDF, ENGIE, the Scottish country or nation, whatever you want to call them, and I think it was 5+, I forget one. They decided to put some more money into the association to actually make it fly. And this is when they decided to hire someone to do policy work. Sean was there to develop the commercial aspects mostly. She was the representative, high-level representative, if you like, but they had nobody on the ground in Brussels to do that. So when I got hired, Matthias is the first guy I found and met. So that's on me as policy person, if you like. And we started working together very closely to try and see where this sector could go. We launched the European Technology Innovation Platform together.
Exactly. Pause it there.
So that this was an idea that was birthed between the two of us and presented to the board of directors and helped create a great new vessel for information towards the Commission.
Now, Rémi, this is what is an important step for professionalizing the organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because this is it's important for me to share with the listeners to give them a picture about how it is to be such a working for a very niche sector, but how you can work and move yourself up the ladder. So what you did was you got the label of technology platform, and for the listeners who do not know what that is, technology platforms. I don't remember if they have the same name still, but those are.
They still do, yeah.
Those are fora where the industry and research, they give input to the Commission within a specific sector on what should be in the work programs of Horizon Europe, or back then Horizon 2020. Yeah. So this step, just
go ahead.
That was just I was very happy. I remember I thought, yes, guys, this is the right way to go. Now you can continue.
It was basically when I met with Matthias, we were as if you remember, I came from the wind sector. We had a wind energy technology and innovation platform. They're called technology and innovation platform now, but it's the same. And essentially, I asked Matthias, what do you think about it? Like, we don't have one, why not? And the one thing to understand is we are not Ocean Energy Europe. It's not a technology platform. We run it. It's the technology platform itself is a network of individuals. It's free to participate in. Ocean Energy Europe is an association that represents members, but the platform gives us access to a much wider pool of people interested in ocean energy. And it also has a label of independence, which is very important for the Commission when it comes to extracting the needs from a sector, so that they're sure that those needs don't come from 6 players on the board of directors of one association who are very rich and paid for enough people to discuss this with the Commission, but it comes from the wider sector as a whole, whether they have the cash to put into representation or not. So the technology platform was an additional vessel, if you like, for feeding information into the European Commission on what the needs of the sector are. And it still is. It's a third, maybe even fourth by now version. It's a third version that's funded by the Commission, but when we first launched it, it was without any funding for 2 years. We just did it with the sweat and tears of people in the sector and my own.
Yes, because that's also the trick. Why? Because the technology platforms was something that framework was something the Commission decided before that was during framework program 7. And they decided that there should be a stronger connection with the industry, especially, but also they wanted the research to be connected to these platforms to give more structured input to the work programs, because it was a cacophony before. And then the Commission decided what areas are based on input, of course, from a lot of people lobbying, Yes. But it's a Commission decision, and here you established one yourself. So yes, blood, sweat, and tears for your own, picking up your own pocket, putting money on the table like this, and then after 2 years, I guess.
Yeah, then we got it financed.
Matthias did his homework.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. What has happened since? So just in short, because we will shortly move into talking about the work you do as in the funding landscape. But before we reach to that, so you established technology platform. So the last 5-6 years as an organization, has you kept ramped up your stakes? So share with me and the listeners.
Sure. Yeah. So like you said, when we started, we were 1.5 people on payroll and a budget of 200K. Now we're on the $1 million budget with 8 people permanently and another 2 delegated people that are also European project funded. So it's a much bigger team. It's still fairly small, but given the size of the sector, it's actually pretty consequent.
Exactly. Well done. Yeah.
So yeah, we're very happy about that. Obviously, it enables us to continue professionalizing the association, helping the sector pass professional messages the best we can, the best they can, and also extract more accurate information for the Commission so that they can put more tailored funding programs on the table and more tailored legislation, which they have also recently in the shape of two things. One called the Offshore Renewable Energy Strategy, which is a communication, so it's not a legislation, but it's a communication that put forward a target for ocean energy of 100 megawatts in the water by 2025, 1 gigawatt by 2030, and 40 gigawatts by 2050, which is the first time we ever had targets, and something obviously we pushed for at Ocean Energy Europe. And the second, which is much more recent, from April this year, is it's actually not even signed yet because the French are being difficult. As always, right? Being French myself.
It's not nuclear energy.
Yeah, it is nuclear energy. Actually, they're holding the Renewable Energy Directive hostage to get some nuclear stuff in. So anyway, long story. But anyway, the Renewable Energy Directive has something that we also were pushing very positively, and I hope and strongly. It's a target for innovative renewables inside the directive. So the directive sets a target of 42.5% by 2050. By 2030, and we have a target for innovation of 5%. So 5% of everything that needs to go in the water or be installed in renewables in general between now and 2030 needs to be innovative renewables. So obviously the definition is fairly wide. So you could have innovative offshore wind, even though it's a commercial sector. Some of the technology is still innovative, but obviously we have a number of other very innovative technologies like tidal and wave who are fully matching that definition. So legislation is another aspect and of the work, and next to the funding aspects.
Yeah, before we step into it, so a general sort of perspective is that wind energy, they are moving more and more into a commercial area where they
already are. Yeah,
many of my old contacts will probably be angry hearing me saying this, but they don't need that much funding anymore as they used to.
No, that's absolutely correct.
There is a certain limit to how big the wind turbines can get if you want to put them offshore, right? You can make them big, make it very big, but it's still they move into a place where they can actually commercialization is. They are getting there, and they're getting there faster than they actually thought they would. So that's a very good thing, which means the whole point, what I'm saying is that there should flow some money towards the technologies that are promising, like ocean energy, where you do have challenges, where you would need public funding to lift up. You know that there's a potential, but they need that lift.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Let's just Let's just move into talking a little bit about. Now we already touched it a little bit here and there, but I'm gonna dig a little bit into it on Ocean Energy Europe and your role in the funding landscape.
Sure.
Now, Horizon Europe is the big animal, right? It is for all organizations and all sectors. That's where the big cash is, so to say, for running. But and we will talk about that. But we're also going to talk a little bit about what else, because that's what you have had to do in the sector. You had to look for live program funding. You had to combine combine different funding schemes, all kinds of different creative solutions for the hard working souls out there that really loves this, because they are really dedicated people. They some of them have started in the kitchen, at the kitchen table with some sort of model. They're engineers, maybe old engineers towards retirement. Then they had an idea, and then it's a fantastic sector. And then you have the professionals, the engineers in the universities that spin off, and then they go out and make their own spin-off company. And it's really the group of people in the sector they burn so much for this. It's
it's very passionate. Yeah,
it's life and death. It's and I remember entering. Now I'm okay. It's digression now again, but it's nice with these small anecdotes. When I entered the sector and helped them in Denmark, it was about say 20, 30 people or something like this, right? And when I started running around, they started to to, have you seen this new guy? And they quickly do he's helping us. Excellent. It was fantastic. No, a wonderful time. No, that put aside. Now, we're going to talk about the role that you have in Ocean Energy Europe in the Horizon Europe ecosystem. And we have talked a little bit about it, about the technology platform you established and so on. But so the corner of Horizon Europe, that's the energy program, right? So do you have other places where you try to have your say in Horizon Europe?
I mean, we have more places outside of Horizon Europe than inside of Horizon, because the energy program is where we get pushed back to each time we try and go into something else. So most of the calls that are dealing with ocean energy are within that energy section, cluster 5 as it's called. So they're where all the calls are clustered around putting machines in the water. There have been a few things around environmental research, but some of them have been even funded directly by the Maritime and Fisheries Fund, and they have some Life Plus programs have put some money on the table for that as well. But yeah, inside Horizon, it's mostly the energy part, cluster 5, that we've been dealing with.
Yeah. Now you're the secretariat for the technology platform.
Yes, correct.
Do you work? And so how is the structure of the platform? How often do they meet? So is there an advisory board? Is it just how many working groups do you have in the platform and so on?
So the platform doesn't have many working groups because the sector is not that big at the moment. And also because I'm not a huge fan of static working groups, because they tend to cost more time than they actually deliver value. So
lots of meeting time.
Yeah, I mean, people love meetings, people love being on boards and etc. But then when you actually need them to do something, then it's a different story. So you end up, as a secretariat, you end up managing egos and people and spending time in meetings without any results. So we couldn't afford that, especially at the beginning. We still can't. We have one person managing the platform. It's my colleague and our senior policy officer, Lotta Pirtima. And we need to be efficient, and the sector needs us to be efficient. So that's good, works well together. So we have less meeting, especially now after COVID. The sector meets generally once, the platform meets once per year, either at the annual conference or alongside another of our event, which is a strategy day we organize for members of the association. So we try and make them meet once per year, but essentially most of it is done online via consultations. And without working groups, the work is done on an ad hoc basis when we get a request from the Commission or when we know that the Commission will need information. Clearly, the SRIA, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, which is a document the Commission likes to have before they launch into designing their calls, is a process that takes almost a year. And it requires a lot of consultation.
I had it later on, but let's just pick it now. If we push it up the rundown here, yes, the strategic part and the research, the science, research, and innovation agenda. That's something that takes time.
Yes,
right. Especially when you started, I guess, because I remember actually that you started to develop this back in the days.
Yeah, correct.
To sort of, because this. Okay, for listeners who do not know, when you work within these strategic areas towards the Commission, where you are supposed to hand in a flow of input to the work programs, they also expect the sector to develop some sort of overview of the technologies that is related to a sector,
Yes.
and what the industry and research areas think, where they think things should go.
Exactly.
And also very much they would also like to have some sort of timeline. So until this and this year, it should be like this within the grid connection, within this and this, the holding structure, whatever, it's like this, and then both short term and long term. And often you would also see in this some sort of indication, maybe even broken down to cold text, sort of giving an idea of that you can work with in the working group. So that's what it is. So this is a document that you make, and it's
Yes.
how long is yours, page wise?
It's about 50 pages, something like that.
Exactly. So that should give people an idea. Now, you did it back then. So this is something you update on a how do you work with the strategic research innovation agenda?
Yeah,
Do you have so that's what you work with in the strategic days, or what?
Yeah, we've produced 3 so far. We're going to work on the 4th one very soon. So there is one each time there is a new work program, if you like, almost, maybe not exactly, because for example, the next work program is just going to be for 2025. So the SRIA we had in place for 23-24 is not going to be obsolete yet by 25. But essentially, yeah, it's linked to the work programs. And then we do a consultation. We start with very broad questions to the sector about what they need, what type of funding, what are they trying to finance, what are their priorities, which issues do they have, and then we try and narrow it down to the most common issues, because everybody has different issues. But if everybody has similar issues, then that's probably the ones you want to orient the funding towards, so that it helps most people bridge one of their challenge. So yeah, essentially we start with a consultation, and we produce a document, and then we shoot it back out for further consultation, and we fine tune that. And then we start talking to the commission, and then we fine tune it a bit more, and that's how it gets finalized, if you like.
Do you then, when you have these strategic days, do you then sit in working groups and work with different questions, or how do you work with that?
Well, like I said, it was very much on an ad hoc basis. Sometimes we've also used some matrix, like University of Edinburgh, when I first started, provided us with a matrix of prioritization. So it was a huge Excel sheet with a few reasonably complex formulas, not too bad. And we put all the topics that everybody wanted funded, and we started ranking them according to a number of criteria: how relevant it was for the sector, how crucial, whether it was groundbreaking, whether like what timelines were, different criteria. I don't actually. This is literally, I think, 10 years ago, or maybe 9. But so when we need to, we use these type of matrices to make sure that we get the right priorities at the end. But often it comes down to talking with the people who have the best hands-on experience, who are developing a specific project, who have something very concrete that they are trying to build, and speaking with them and extracting it from those interviews. So there is a lot of there are working groups, but beyond that, there is a lot of work done by my colleague to fine-tune the priorities. And then, yeah, and the work with the commission starts probably before the research agenda is finished. Because it's good to hear that this is what we need, this is what the sector needs, but if it needs to be packaged one way or another so that it gets heard by the right people inside the commission, then it's also something that's important.
Yeah, it's this is a picture of the professionalization of an organization like yours, because when you're able to run these things, run these processes, when you're able to structure and put together a professional document, a formal document that the commissions recognizes as the input from the sector, the authoritative input from the sector, then you have moved yourself in a very good spot.
Yes.
Then because then you are the de facto organization that the commission is liaison with when it comes to this sector. And it also gives a much more solid. It gives you yourself in the organization and your members a very much more calm stomach, because it means that the commission recognizes you.
Yes.
And it means that there's a long-term commitment. It's implicit, right?
Yes.
In this, that there's a long-term commitment from the commission in one way or the other towards the sector.
Yeah, and I have to say, the collaboration has been very good, and I think I have also the members to thank for that, because they gave us the information we needed to provide the commission with, and recently other parts of the commission have contacted us to even use our data, because we have a kit in the water database, which is a repository of all the projects we know of, and apparently we have one of the best kit in the water database out there. So so the JRC, the Joint Research Center, who's been working on publishing studies about the sector, and recently Eurostat wanted to work together to see whether their data was accurate enough and complete enough. And having worked in other organizations, I can tell you that I haven't heard that this happened to any other organization yet. Normally those organizations are considered to be a potential source of information, but very biased information, whereas we have managed to provide the information in a way that it is unbiased. We still have our messaging, of course, but the basis it relies on in terms of figures, in terms of projects, is very unbiased, and that has given us the trust, I guess, from the several parts of the commission.
Yeah, I guess that's also because you come from a very different point, right? You come from a low point where it was a matter of survival, yeah. If to keep it in the ocean, to keep head over water. That was what it was when I came in. It was really, people were looking at each other at these conferences and so on. And, how do we move on? Everybody was staring at the commission. Do they give us money? Do they give, hoping they would not slash it, because then where do you want to go? So no, it's you have come a long way, and that's you can pat yourself on the back, Rémi.
That's not my work. That's the members' work. But
it's a matter of coordinating and facilitating it. I mean, the members, if they're of course motivated, and when they see you work professional in the organization, then things play together. If so, I can reassure you, you are not here. The members, they play, of course, a role in the work and pulling it in, but they are dieharders. They would do anything. It's a matter of your organization facilitating this and making things happen towards the commission to make this real where you stand now. So well done.
Thank you.
Now, before we move into technical part, how you practically work and so on with workshops and events, I also want to characterize a little bit the work you do as an organization for the listeners to get an idea of what it is, what kind of approach you have to as a member-based organization also. But before we move into that, a little bit about the other funding schemes that you work with. Yeah, you have briefly touched upon it, but Life.
So Life Plus has had very little for us, but it's a scheme we've followed from afar, I want to say, as far as we could.
Where else?
So, but some other schemes have been much more interesting. For example, Inofini DP. This is an EIB, European Investment Bank program that was putting debt, very cheap debt, so into innovative sectors. And one of our members managed to get a debt from that program. It's a program that is being renewed, rechanged, so we're going to see how it evolves. But that's something. The problem we had with the EIB is they looked at the technology, and the technology was good enough, but the commercial prospects were not. And this has changed, as I said, in the last 2 years. There are better projects now, and there are better possibilities to get to financial close. So I'm assuming that the EIB will take another look, which will be more positive this time. But that was one of the programs that was providing not grants, but cheap debt, which is also workable for pilot farm stage projects. We had, the Innovation Fund, the first version, the second version.
Yes, yeah.
Very interesting program, very biased.
The small scale?
Yeah, no, well, it was very biased towards large scale projects at the beginning. Then they did a small scale stuff, which was too small scale and still using criteria that were not fitting small scale projects. So we also work with the Commission quite significantly, and now we have a mid-scale window, it's called. So it's a mid-scale program for medium-sized projects with criteria that are much more friendly to innovative technologies. So this was a big win last year.
Is that the Innovation Fund?
It's part of the Innovation Fund, yes. The Innovation Fund has different windows. There is a small scale, large scale, and now a medium scale window, which are 3 different calls, if you like, to call them something simpler. And within these calls, there are different criteria now, and criteria that fit us much better. So it was the first iteration of that medium-sized call was in December last year. So it's generated funding for 2 wave projects, which is great. We were hoping much more, and we're hoping that the clarification of the understanding of the rules that they put in place, which was a bit rushed with the Russian crisis, etc., will provide for more funding for the future calls under that fund. But the Innovation Fund, it's something we've put quite a bit of effort into, and is starting to pay off for the sector. And then we had a few other things, like we wanted to launch an insurance fund, because grants are great, but it's free cash, so it's difficult to come by. Revenue support, by now we know how to do good revenue support, so feed-in tariffs, tenders, we know how to design them properly and avoid the errors of the past where some governments went into runaway costs to the point where they were a bit scared.
So what are we talking about here? Explain a little bit in detail.
Which parts?
The function of how this works.
So it's essentially the technologies we're talking about, whether it's us now or the wind industry in the 2000s. They're technologies that deliver electricity at a cost that is higher, or at the price, if you like, but in that case,
exactly
the same.
Yeah.
But it's higher than the electricity average price. So to make it work for investors, to make it work for banks, you need a top up on top of electricity price, so that your revenues match, at least with ideally a bit of fat, match your costs. So, and you can attract investors to invest into your projects. So feed-in tariffs, they're guaranteed buying prices. So if you build a project, the state will guarantee you a fixed price at which you can sell your electricity, and based on that fixed price, you can build your project finance. Tenders work in a similar fashion. Essentially, anything works as a top-up on top of either the electricity price or as a replacement entirely for the market price. But the objective is always the same, is to make cost and revenue match better, and is also to provide security for investors.
Exactly. So they talked a lot about this when I was there, like to which governments would go for if they would put a higher tariff for wave and so on. So do you lobby towards specific countries on this?
Yeah, of course. We lobby towards all countries on this, and it's the sector will not develop without this. So I have zero shame in saying that we need it. We do, and you're not going to develop. To give you an idea, a project, whether it's a small scale project or large scale projects, at pilot farm stage, a project is going to cost anywhere between 20 million and 150 million.
Yeah,
it's not Horizon Europe level money. This is not something you can finance with grants. It's not something any government will put. You need private money in it, and to attract private money, you need these top-ups. So it's a way of making it cheaper for everybody, and it's a way to attract investors. So yes, whenever we speak to governments, and you will find that in all of our documentation, we express the need for revenue support. This is how the wind industry developed, onshore wind. This is how the solar industry developed. This is how offshore wind developed. This is how anybody in this field needs to develop. You can't.
Yeah.
We're not selling, mobile phones. We're not selling stuff that you can mass manufacture very easily and that you can produce millions of units in a given time frame and make economies of scale like this. We're still manufacturing relatively small scale power plants. If you compare it to a gas plant, a coal plant, a nuclear, obviously we are hundreds of times smaller. So there is a bigger value because going down the cost curve is easier for us than it is for the nuclear sector, for example. They've built 3 reactors since Chernobyl. Like, how are they going to go down the cost curve? I'm still waiting to hear the answer to that. We have already more machines in the water than we've built nuclear reactors in Europe in the last 20, 30 years. So so that's an advantage. But the need for revenue support alongside grants is always there. And we've moved away. Like, the minute you enter pilot farm stage, you need this combination of grant, debt, and revenue support to make it work.
Yeah. So that's the answer to any sector like this.
Correct.
That you need to combine the mix. And the reason, now, I mean, you just mentioned the amount of money, and just for people to get an idea why it is so expensive.
It's not expensive. I'll get back to that after you finish.
But if it's just the development costs are expensive compared to other parts, because you are in the water, and it's difficult to replicate that situation in a safe environment. Like when the wind energy developed, they could put on a wind turbine on the ground, and they developed the technology, and then they could slowly move into offshore. This starts in the offshore, you can make all the wave tanks in the world that you want to make, but you can never replicate a good storm in the North Sea.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's just gonna fold like a piece of plastic if you don't make your things right. And this is why it's so and not just that, also the connection to the grid and all. This makes it a very, very expensive sector to develop, but the what you can gain from it is huge. That's the point why it's a little tricky for you. And this is why it is important what you've done with making a mix of guiding your members in a direction, say you can do this and this and this and this to realize these big projects, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was saying it's not expensive because when the wind industry and especially the solar industry started, one of the feed-in tariffs the solar guys asked for was 800 euro per megawatt hour. And that probably doesn't tell you a lot, but if I tell you that we are currently answering bids for tidal with, I don't know, maybe 15 machines in the water, we're answering bids at 250 euros per megawatt hour.
Yeah.
Then it gives you, this is what I'm saying, we're actually not that expensive. Like, we're coming later in. We have benefited from learnings from the offshore wind industry, not so much the solar industry, but definitely from offshore wind. We use similar components, we use similar business models, similar materials. So we are actually much cheaper, and this is why I think it's a good deal for governments to support this technology, because they can support it at a much lower level than they did support the wind and solar industries when they were at a similar stage of technological development. So voilà. But anyway,
thanks. It's good. Oh, it's always good with a nice professional in my podcast studio that can because I know do remember some stuff. But it's good. Thanks, Rémi.
My pleasure.
What I wanted to cover still under this point of you and the role in the funding landscape. You're a member-based organization.
Yes.
Yeah. Correct. And they pay you, of course, a membership fee to be on board. How many members do you have?
We have about 120 members at the moment. Like I said, across all stages of technological development and beyond, para governmental institutions. So yeah, it's very wide.
It's a lot more than when I was there. I remember the list was not that long.
When I started, we had 35. So we basically tripled almost. We more than tripled the membership.
What made the difference?
What do you mean? Why did they join?
No, but you've been having a significant rise. Could you see? Was it when you
it was when we
professionalized with?
Yeah, of course, it was when we started showing that there was some funding available, and there were people who were able to orient members towards the right funding, and there were people also looking at beyond funding at the legislative framework to support ocean energy. So yeah, I think and also because Ocean Energy Europe is alone, and even it's not even only in Europe, but it's globally. It's the only organization that is purely dealing with wave and tidal and OTEC and salinity gradient. But what I mean by that is without offshore wind. So we are very independent from that stage. We're dealing with technologies that are, yes, at different stages of development, but none of them are commercial. So it brings them together, if you like. And because we have that specificity, it made us, I guess, more interesting for both the industry and the institutions. But yeah, we're a membership-based organization, of course.
Now, all the things I listed here, that's actually things that we have discussed. But maybe you can share with me, because with the next topic we're going to cover before we move towards the end here, we'll talk about membership involvement and how you get involved in the organization and what is expected and how you get the most out of it and so on. Because that's, of course, you have an added value, right, as an organization. But
we hope so.
Yeah. So before we move into that, what is it that what do you do for your members?
What do we do for members? Well, we do.
What do you? So
do everything for members.
Of course, you have. You have, of course, what we've just been talking about, because that is something that members understand the value of. Yeah. So
yes,
the strategic part of it, but is that do you write proposals and so stuff like this? So how do you? What do you do for a member, so to say?
Well, we only write proposals for calls that we coordinate ourselves. We don't really help writing. There are a lot of professional consultants who are good at doing that. We have, in 2023, we failed our first ever bid within Horizon Europe. We have won every other single once. So I dare say we're not that bad if we ever wanted to become professional consultants, but it's not what we're here for. So
no, it's not your role, right?
No, it's not my job.
No.
So we don't do that.
But do you help members? Do you help them find consortia, for instance? Do you guide them towards?
Yeah, we've done that.
Proposals on the preparation of some,
We can't evaluate them because we've never used any as consultants for one of our projects. So, but we have lists of consultants that are already, whether it's Innovation Fund people, whether it's Horizon. Yeah, that's possible. But we help. So to go back to your initial question, what we do for members is mostly ahead of the calls being published. Once the calls are published, it's largely up to the members to help themselves and answer the calls in the best way possible. Now, we do offer generally to join as a partner for dissemination and communication, because we have probably one of the largest network, if not the largest network of contacts in the ocean energy field.
Sure.
And those contacts span both industry and institutions, which makes it valuable for projects because the dissemination is wider and is across more different categories of stakeholders.
Yeah, but it's also part of it's a very generally used business model for associations like yours, right? To call it, because you cannot just count on membership fees. You also need to get certain different streams of income to work, and it's synergizing with the work you do.
Sometimes
and what you are as an organization, and then you can use that as part of EU projects. It's
So I mean, this is more true of the policy work we do within projects than it is of the communication and dissemination work, because some projects we join as a policy partner. If, for example, I'll give you an example from ATIP currently needed to write a report on how to finance ocean energy. So this is something that's very relevant, and it's something that we're happy to get funded to do because it's kind of falls within our remit as an organization to do that. But when we do communication dissemination, the main thing we get are overheads on top of the staff costs, and that's not super interesting. So I've personally had the objective to keep the number of projects we do with non-policy content to a minimum, because ultimately we're not, like I said, we don't want to end up being project deliverers and communication professionals on a project level.
Line.
Yeah, there is a fine line. Yeah. It's like you said, it's all about the synergies. If the objective of the project is very synergetic with the objective of the associations, then it makes sense for us to participate. And then I don't mind whether we're paid what we cost or whether we're paid, like if we had a consulting contract, so we're working for someone, we would charge 2 or 3 times what we cost. It's a completely different approach. Like this, the fact that Horizon repays your salary is very good for research projects, but for dissemination communication, it's not super interesting, which is fine too. I mean, it's not the objective of the program. So
probably many of the listeners that sit in similar organizations as Rémi, you would know exactly this issue, that you need to take a little bit care involving yourself too much in these kind of things. Locking your resources to
exactly.
To
I mean,
things.
If you start having 80% of your staff delivering projects, then are you really a policy organization anymore?
Yeah. Thanks. Let's move in. We're moving towards the end here, but first, because I've done this before, I had Spire in. I will have Circular Biobased Europe in also. So having this kind of Brussels-based organizations talking a little bit about the membership involvement, because it's good for the listeners and for the sector or people out there to understand how like if you are interested, what is it that the kind of organizations, what you do, right? What you can. So let's talk a little bit about that. So, how do you join?
How do you join?
How do you get involved?
Well, it's very easy.
Send you an email or what?
Yeah, you send me an email. You join tomorrow. You send me a check as well.
Yeah,
I'll give you my private bank account, and it goes even faster. No,
it's not. As far
very.
As I remember, you have scaled. Do you still have scaled fees?
Yeah, we have scaled fees. So if you're a small company, it's very cheap. If you're a bit bigger, so we have different ranges, and we have a lead partner section which gives you access to the board of directors of the association, where you can essentially show that you're a supporter of ocean energy. So a lot of the utilities, a lot of the most serious or most rich, depending on how you want to look at it, device manufacturers are also on the board and also lead partners of the association, and we try and give them obviously a better service, which means they have more access to information essentially. And yeah, so that's how you join. It's a one pager, so it's very simple. We are non-for-profit, so there is no big issues around taxes and etc. So it's
they're not going to finance your second home in Costa Rica.
I'm afraid not. No, as much as I would like to, it's not happening. Neither mine nor their own, which could be an issue as well for directors of board of directors.
What is expected of you? Can you just be a passive member? I guess you can be a passive member, right? But the most of the members are active. What is expected?
So as a member, nothing is expected of you. We are here to provide you a service, and we do that not directly to you necessarily. Like again, we're not consultants. The service is provided to the sector, and you as a member of the sector benefit from the association's work. But if you want to be involved and we like it, then whenever we have consultations, it's great to have good feedback. Whenever we need to get information about the sector, if you want then as a member, if you feedback a lot of content, that's great for us. It helps us understand what moves in the sector, what changes, where the new areas are, etc. And then if you want your technology or your activities to be represented, informing us about it is good. We use all of the projects that our members are involved in to pass our messages. We use them to shape our vision of the sector and to shape the institution's vision of the sector. So the more information you give us, the more we can use. And it's true of pictures, videos now, and of course project information. So
And this, you know what? Because I've been talking in previous episodes, regulars will know, sharing a little bit about how to lobby. Like how do you approach Brussels? How do you, as an organization, anywhere in Europe, how do you perceive Brussels as a concept, so to say? How do you? That can seem very frightening. It's not the right word, but it's not something that you would feel, oh, that's easy to do. Like people, if they think of, I would need to approach Brussels I would like to have a word say, it can be quite difficult to find the place to go. Now, this I've been talking in earlier episodes about, but it's when you know where to go. When you if you make a little bit of investment in understanding or asking NCPs, for instance, of where should I go to get involved if I want something, if I have an opinion about the sector that I'm in. If you find that, now Rémi is representing the Ocean Energy. Now you find Rémi, right? So you get involved, you pay your annual fee to join, and then you're invited to have your say on the strategic days, and that is, you can go into discussions and reflections together with the other members, giving your input, giving your opinion about this technology. I know that we know from what we do in our company, it needs to do this and this if we need to reach that. Then you have had your say, exactly. And this, so the road is very short to actually having it, because that is what you do. So you collect from members, and if it's serious input that the other members within that subsector can see, well, he's got a point, then you're in the game. Then exactly. You have your say. Then suddenly Rémi, he will carry over your input.
Exactly. I can't. I'm afraid I'm not allowed to carry input that's from non-members. So that's my limitation.
Figuratively speaking.
Yes, exactly.
But that it's very important for me as a message from this podcast, as be a guiding voice for people to sort of demystify the animal a little bit, because that's what you do, Rémi.
Yeah, we're translators.
Exactly.
We translate industry needs into legislative and funding opportunities. Yes. And sometimes we even translate the language. We receive the information into language that is hearable at Brussels level, because, as you said, we have a lot of engineers, and engineer speech is not necessarily European Commission speech. So,
you're a double translator, because then you have to translate the European Commission's language into the
and vice versa. Absolutely, it goes both ways. Like, it's for most people not working Brussels, it's incomprehensible what comes out of the institutions. So
this is actually also part of my discourse in this podcast, to demystify the language, to help people decoding all this. And actually, just a few words more about this, because if you then have stepped into that room together with Rémi's members and the other people, the stakeholders from the sector, then suddenly you can more actively use this strategically for your organization, be it university, a private research organization, SME, large. You can use it strategically in your own organization to say, look, this we need to transmit, we need to give this message there, and then we move forward with our technology, and then we push on. So we might be able to apply for funding in a year or two that will help us even more. So it's if you put on the long light.
Yeah, the briefings and information we pass on what's happening, helps everybody make their plans on where they could get money from, and what's going to happen politically, and where to push politically. And the offshore strategy I was mentioning earlier has had a big impact politically, specifically on France, but on other countries, to support the sector again. So yeah, it's exactly that. We hope to give our members a strategic advantage that others don't have.
Exactly. That's why it's so important. The Grand. We're moving towards the end.
Yes.
Now, I always have a segment called the Toughest Challenge, and I've had it since I was sitting and staring into a microphone at the first recordings I did myself, just to make some sort of segment, or making some sort of twist in the end. Toughest challenge as an industrial organization, not an industrial organization, but a representative organization of a niche sector, what is over the years, when you zoom out and look at the years you've been working for the ocean energy sector, what has been the toughest as a professional in your corner to deal with?
Well, first, let me say that we're not a niche sector. We're an early stage sector. And the difference I see there is that, yeah, you're excused. The difference I see is that a niche sector has a limited growth capacity, which is not our case. We have significant growth capacity, but we are at the early times of that development. So we're a new sector, or a growing sector, however you want to call it. I don't like the word niche myself, but the toughest challenge we've had has probably been the lack of finance across the board after the first few farms got put in the water, which is fallout from the financial crisis in what I can analyze from it, mostly, not only, but mostly, and fallout from early stage mistakes in renewable finance, renewable funding from the member state level. So this has definitely been the toughest challenge for us specifically as ocean energy sector. And and maybe the other one is just we're small. So if the gas sector steps in and hires thousands, like to give you this is a metric that Euractiv published on back when Cañete was Commissioner for Energy. They said the commissioner had met the gas lobby 100 times in 1 year, and he had met the renewable lobby 1 time as a group of many representatives of different associations. So I'm sure, I think my colleagues in wind managed to see him 3 times or 4 times. I don't remember. They got a bit better access, but the balance is completely offset. The challenge when you're small is that you need to make your place, and that's but I think we've done okay, because we have 2 commissioners coming to the conference this year, both of which have been supporting the sector. The energy commissioner is coming for the 3rd time, and last week I had an email in my inbox from the former commissioner who's still helping us, Commissioner Carmen Uvela, to promote the sector. So I think we're doing okay.
Good, congratulations. No, but this is good. Yeah, but that's an accomplishment. That's because it means you have a good relationship with the top levels. And last minute marketing, your annual day. So when is it?
Last minute marketing. The conference is 25 and 6 of October. It's in The Hague, in the Netherlands this year. We try to change to go to new markets, open new markets. I mean, we're not opening them, but making them more visible and welcoming everybody to go there, trying to work a bit with the government to show them that there is potential, not so much for the resource. They have a bit, but mostly for the industrial aspect. So in The Hague, we expect about 400 people. We have 2 commissioners. We have all the CEOs of the sector, all the CFOs. Like it's very high level type attendance because it's policy oriented. So it's not. We have a technical ground as well. So if you're an engineer, we have a few sessions which are in a track, a technical track as well. But the rest is,
I would say,
politically oriented.
Your annual meetings, that's the most important meeting for the ocean energy sector.
Yeah, the annual conference. Yes, we have the annual meeting for members, which is a good moment for exchanging within the organization, redefining strategies, etc. But the annual conference is a political focus and is a way for the sector to meet each other on a very regular and strong basis. You know everybody will be there, so it's easy.
Yeah, and it's very cozy also because it's a village compared to other sectors. So a lot of people know each other. They've been struggling together for decades. Some of them household names. I still remember some of them. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I hope to see you there.
Well, fortunately, cannot. My daytime job is absolutely not EU proposal related. But I hope I one day will be able to join you in a future position, really, because it is lovely.
Well, welcome that.
Rémi, if I've started asking some of my guests if there would be a podcast guest that they themselves would love to hear me invite into the virtual podcast studio. If you think EU funding ocean energy, is there a person that you would love to hear me have as guest on the show?
Well, that's a tough one, because the people I want information from, I go and get it myself.
Yeah.
So you could, if you wanted to approach people in the sector, Orbital, EMEC has done some interesting lobby work. The MEC, I don't know if you've heard about them, but normally the national associations fund the European Association. That's the way it works in most sectors. In my case, I have been funding the national associations for the last 3 years. So it's been a bit strange, but we placed someone within GMEC in the Netherlands. We placed someone in France within the Syndicat des Énergies Renouvelables, and we placed someone in the UK, which created, Renewable UK, right? So they used to represent the sector, but everybody was very dissatisfied with what they were doing. So they created this, at the beginning it was just a loose network of people. And then we had the opportunity via an Interreg project to fund people to actually help them develop. So we have one guy there, which is the policy director for the Marine Energy Council. Super interesting guy, if you wanted another view on energy, more UK focused, that would be certainly somebody worth interviewing.
Sure, I'm allowing myself to be geeky in my podcast, and to have people from specific sectors telling how funding helped them build the company. So someone from the industry, someone from the UK part, sure, yeah. But let's exchange on that.
Good.
Which names could be. So thanks for this. I'm just going to have my fly out before we say goodbye to the listeners. So,
okay.
Dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast episode to the end. I'm doing this in an open window in my parents' countryside house in Denmark. It's very cozy. It's been very nice sitting here talking to Rémi with a nice summerly feeling here. I hope a little bit of it is caught by the microphone with the little birds and so on. I have to remind you all to check out my website. I have just updated that. I have made individual episodes for all, individual pages for all my episodes. So that's starting to become more and more professional. I get more and more requests to join the show, and I get a lot of attention for what I do. So I'm very, very happy for that. Go in. Check it out. You have all kinds of categories, and there's lots of content for everybody now. Actually, it starts to build up. Then I have to remember to say that you should connect with me on LinkedIn. This is where the fun happens. This is where I have everything. So if you're not yet that, please, by all means, Niels Tudor-Winter, find me on LinkedIn. If you found this podcast episode, you will also find me. And then I have to remember to guide you to, if you have any sympathy at all for what I'm doing here, please subscribe to my email list on my website. This is the best way for me as a podcaster to grow. So if you want to help me, please, by all means, subscribe to the email list. I think that's it. Sometimes I forget stuff when I have this, but it's like this. I do it all the time, so I can always adjust the next time.
Yeah.
Rémi, it's been wonderful having you, and thank you so
Thanks,
much
Niels.
for your time here in the evening.
My pleasure.
And we will stay in touch. I always keep a left eye on what you're doing there, so the flow of information coming. So it was lovely to hear from you again and how it's going with the ocean sector. Take care, and let's say goodbye to the listeners. Bye.
Thank you for having me, and bye-bye.